Hey there, my commoner friends. So let's see how this goes, unscripted and unplanned. But I came home, I put my son to bed, and my wife's on a call with Asia, which means I somehow miraculously have an hour of free time. And just last week, actually a little more than that, we got the first strike decks for Terra and Aurora. So let's talk those two decks and their impact on commoner. Let's do this. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my flesh and blood commoner friends. Thanks for tuning in for this. And like I said, let's see how this goes. But this is actually pretty exciting, right? In terms of what we're talking about tonight, the first strike decks as applied to commoner. Now, something we need to kind of get out ground rules out of the gate. The reason that I don't have a script and I hadn't had a plan for this is I wasn't really wanting to put much mental calories into planning for these two until we saw Rosetta, right? I've actually had quite a few requests for deck lists and stuff like that. Some from people who picked them up at Gen Con, which is completely fair. But other just from commoner people. You commoner folks, you're a hungry bunch in terms of wanting those deck lists, and I respect that, right? But I didn't really want to put a whole bunch of effort into it until we had the full picture. I get it that First Strike is its own thing, but it feels like First Strike is like maybe like the left arm of Rosetta and so on. I know that not all of them will be there, but I don't feel like we get the full picture till Rosetta. So what I don't want to talk deck lists and stuff like that, but what I do want to talk is how some of the commons, or at least how I see those commons fitting into commoner. And we do need to be clear with the rares as well. So let's go through Aurora first. Unfortunately, the sad thing is I wasn't able to figure out, at least on February, how to do the filters to look at only, you couldn't do both the sets and the format at the same time, or at least I couldn't figure out how to do it. So we will have to go through just the two. The easier way to do is just go through the decks. And yes, we'll have to pay attention to rarity. So first off, Aurora and Starfall are both rares, at least in this deck. We do expect to see Aurora in Rosetta. Will it be Starfall in Rosetta? Probably, but they'll likely, almost certainly be a token. There is an interesting question from a other standpoint of will she get another weapon? It could happen. Maybe Starfall's not the weapon. I don't know. But either way, we have Aurora and Starfall. Both are rare, so they're both legal. Now, Aether Crackers is an interesting one here, because I think Mark of Lightning's probably better. Almost certainly better, right? Because like there are certain arguments, and again, it is going to be very hard for me, at least on first pass, to dissociate a lot of the interactions with how Briar works in terms of like creating the embodiment on the on-hit, right? Which obviously Aurora does not have. So again, the fact that Mark of Lightning ties it to the card versus this one just dealing one raw arcane damage, I still think Mark of Lightning's better. Yes, it requires, and this says hits, so I guess it doesn't require a block, but it's basically just pushing one extra damage that they can technically pitch to. It's just kind of weird. So either way, we have Crackling. So Crackling is if you played a lightning card this turn, this gets +1. I don't know, like, to be clear, if you're going like full in on trying to play Aurora in commoner, I think at least today this fits its way in. But right now, if you really think about this is a non-lightning card, right? This is an elemental Runeblade card, so it doesn't fuse for you. I think you're looking at like, do you play this or Entwine Lightning? It blocks for 3, doesn't potentially get to go again. But if you're comparing this to like a Lightning Surge, you're absolutely playing Lightning Surge, right? Now, something that's very interesting is Fry. This card I actually think's pretty good. I know that like, if you look at it on the surface, the card's actually bad, right? In terms of like, because it blocks for 0, it doesn't not block. It blocks for 0, which is kind of cool. Again, from like a Briar standpoint, like it's, Ball Lightning did the same thing. Ball Lightning blocked for 0. So like, I think you can kind of see some like natural, like, oh, this was like our dumbed down version of Ball Lightning. But it's not as good, obviously, as Ball Lightning. But I think this card's good. because again, it's lightning and it can fuse, and it also like you just play it and it naturally has go again with her, which then turns on a lot of like, have you played lightning this turn? I think this card's good. Like, I think if you end up playing Aurora and again, I get it, there's a whole discussion of should you play Aurora over Briar, because basically Briar does, I think, everything better. Nearly everything better. I mean, that's just a very real conversation to have, right? But anyway, going into Fry. I think it's cool. The 0 is interesting. I do think this is like Ball Lightning V2.0. So you have Heaven Claws, Lightning Surge, Photon Rush. This card, by the way, I know it's not. I don't know if it's in Rosetta or not. I think it's not, based on like their whole database thing and kind of some secrets they gave away. But this card is going to look super cool. I'm not a huge fan of the art. I think it could be a little better, but like in terms of like the contrast and stuff, this card's going to look super cool on foil if they ever do it. Right? Looks super cool. So if you've played a lightning card this turn, this gets go again. So right, fits right into exactly what I was just talking about with Fry. Static Shock, I think, is really cool, but that would be a rare. So you don't want that one. Harness Lightning is also a rare. Sizzle. So what I want to point out about Sizzle, your next lightning or elemental attack gets +3. It does not say attack action. So let's go back up to Starfall, Lightning Runeblade Weapon. Okay, so you can actually pump Starfall on that, and it's a lightning card. So Starfall would actually come in for 5. Just by that. Like that in itself, I think is pretty good. We then go into Yellow Crackling Fry. Fair enough. Man, it is kind of a bummer. I mean, it's probably a good thing for Commoner, but it's kind of a bummer that Harness. Actually, I don't know. I think this would be okay. I think it would be okay in Commoner, actually, considering what we're looking at in terms of her not being. I mean, do keep in mind in Commoner she can play Rosetta Thorn, but it doesn't have go again, right? So I do think Harness Lightning would probably be okay. Sizzle, I like the fact that it's yellow. I really hope, again, the fact that Sizzle is not in their database yet for being in Rosetta is interesting. I wouldn't hate a blue Sizzle either. I think that's pretty good. We go to Cloud Cover, which is rare, unfortunately. And then, man, I was really hoping they were going to de-raritize Lightning Press. But they did not. So those are, if you really think about it in terms of impact, not just to if you're going to play Aurora, but if you really think about, like, with Briar, there's a real solid argument to even playing Fry in Briar. I don't necessarily know in Briar that you would play cards that require Lightning having been played, because you have a lot of, like, you want to do, like, again, you have, just think about it out of the gate, you have Minnowism, you have Nimbleism, you have Bramble Spark, which is an Earth Fuse and really good because it ties the Arcane to the hit, which then does the thing, right? So I don't know that Photon Rush makes the cut to be dependent go again. I don't know. Let me know out there if you think. I mean, I think the card's gonna look super cool, but I don't know if it makes the cut. It's probably borderline, actually, But you have a lot of really cool things you can do with, the embodiment. Or in Aurora's case, yes, you're more limited. But paying 2 to give one of, pitching, actually, that's not true, because like a lot of the cards, like, you have Consuming and you have Meet and Greet and stuff like that, which you'd love to just play, but they don't really get the bonus, and they cost 1, which means that if you pitch a 3 into it, you can't swing Starfall. So honestly, if we're just being honest with ourselves, I think the vast majority of the stuff in this deck feeds Briar, and I think that's how we really have to think about it overall. Okay, now to the Briar point. Let's go ahead and go over to, once I could find it, and by find it, I mean click in the right spot. Let's talk Terra. So Terra himself, Legal and Commoner, which is super good. 2 weeks ago, I think it was, at the point that you're watching this, was me publishing that I think Terra's the best Commoner, Guardian, and I do believe that to be true. Now, one thing that is important in all of this is, to the Briar discussion, there are some cards in here that actually potentially feed Briar. Now, very few of them are common or legal, right, within the context of this discussion. Okay, so Terra and the Redwood Hammer, super cool. We do have Bracken Wrap. So this is a elemental guardian that says when its attacks, if an earth was pitched to play this, create a might token. I think that's really solid. One of the pitfall traps here, pitfall trap. See, See how Riptide gets in our heads even when he's not in the conversation. One of the traps here is that we still haven't, as of now, seen a huge array of blue block 3s that are Earth cards for Terra, right? So we'll have to see how that flushes itself out. Right now, just in terms of card pool availability, if you're trying to do, because Earthbond isn't really a fuse, but it's like a pitch fuse, right? So like if you're trying to do something like that, like this is probably just better in Oldhim, I think. Maybe. Let me know if you agree or disagree on that. Burgeoning, Concuss, Logfall. If Earth was pitched to play this game's overpower. That's good. That's good. Right, and I think that works for both of the aforementioned heroes, right? Strong Wood. I'm just going to let that one sit in for a second. But if Earth was pitched, it comes in for 3/7. So that's cool and all, but like there's a lot of 3/7s in Commoner that you don't have to pitch to. And I get it. If you have one left over on an Earth pitch, you get to make a Might, but you're not creating seismics with him in Commoner. So I actually think, as fun as it would be to just say Strong Wood all day long over beer at a Commoner crawl, I think that this card's probably not that good. I think. In the format, I mean. Okay. We have Bracken Wrap, Logfall, Strong Wood, all yellow. Can we just talk about Flora? I know it's a rare, but can we talk about Flora? Actually, specifically the blue one. I'm windmill. Like, once I get my hands on this deck on the 23rd of August, because I didn't go to Gen Con, which is right before Skirmish, this is going in my Briar deck. Like, my actual, like, Briar deck. But we're talking Commoner. I told you we were going to get off script. The rest of this is really not applicable. So we do have Sigil Shelter, which is a common for dealt damage, prevent 2 of it. I don't know, like with Guardians, what they're trying to do. I think that this makes a lot of sense for the first strike deck because you're facing down arcane damage, right? In theory. I don't know about this in Commoner though, right? We've got other ways to kind of do that thing. Now, this card, Seize of Strength, is actually very interesting to me in Commoner for him. Now, it doesn't have Go Again, but it's create a Might token, and if Earth was pitched, create 2 Might tokens. But if you pitch an Earth to it, because it's only 2, you have 1 floating, or if you pitch a blue Earth, I should say, you have 1 floating, which means you actually have 4 Might tokens. So if you think about that in terms of curve of, it's actually 1 below curve from like Ancestral Empowerment or something. Keep in mind, though, that this is just a straight Might token, so you can swing Hammer on it. So I think it maths out for you okay. There are the wager ones out there, like the 2 wager ones. I always forget their names. But from heavy hitters, there's the 2 Guardian wager ones that are kind of on curve with that for any attack. But I think this is pretty good for what he's trying to do. I think it blocks 3, so like it's kind of right up that alley. Come in for a big attack, and then especially in Commoner, you're looking at Thump, Concuss. This card seems pretty decent to me. All right. Sigil of Shelter, again, blue for 1. Meh. And then, man, of Canopy Shelter. But there's probably a reason it's not. So, again, there's not a ton, after we get past the thing, there's a repeat. There's not a ton in here for Terra, and I really do think, to be clear, even though I don't believe that Terra himself is going to get support in Rosetta, I cannot imagine there not being something from like an Earth standpoint that blocks 3 and pitches 3 that he can use. I have to believe that. Maybe not, to be fair, but I would think he's going to pick that up. So again, going back to him and Briar, there's actually nothing directly that Briar can use. I mean, she can, I guess technically use some of the cards, but they don't really fit. So she doesn't really pick anything up from here. So you're mainly feeding her lightning side, which, to be fair, I do believe, even though it's not super good, probably the best version of Briar right now is probably like Stir My Wildwood, Go Tall type of build with like brambles and all that. So I do think it's interesting that you can like have a little more chance of turning on Rosetta with the lightning cards. I do think that's interesting. Didn't pick up anything directly here. That said, there's a lot of stuff that feeds directly into Cranky Grandpa version 2.0 here, which I think feeds pretty good for Commoner. So anyway, that's my take for these two decks. I want to be very clear. I'm shooting this on August 13th. This will go up later, a week later. So we'll only be roughly a month away from release, if not, well, pre-release, if not full spoiler. So I understand that we're close to things changing. But as of today, the first strike has impact. It's not huge impact, but I do think it's not irrelevant for Commoner. And especially it gives us sights. Like I said, I didn't want to put a bunch of calories into figuring everything out. I don't think that you should be building decks with these people in Commoner, right, or these heroes in Commoner right now because of that reason. But it doesn't mean you can't start thinking about it. So anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this. If not, that's fair too. Cheers, my friends, and go Commando.